What is up, guys? Mcdoubles back again with a brand new video, and today we're going to be checking out the Necromancer once again. This time, though, with the increased level bracket for Conquest of Azeroth, we're going to boost it all the way up to 40, and you might be surprised to see that there are actually quite a lot of changes that have been made to this class since the alpha. I think they're more flavorful, they make a lot more sense, and I think you guys are going to like them just at first glance, right? So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's jump right in. Alright guys, so we are on the Necromancer, the OG character, the very first one I made on Conquest of Azeroth, which if you don't know, is a custom class realm in the making for, well, World of Warcraft, but it's a private server, of course. And the way this works is that there are 21 random classes, and we're going to be trying the Necromancer once again today, starting where we left off at level 30 and going to the new bracket cap of level 40 and seeing what we get and how the class feels along the way. But there have been quite a few changes to this class, so I want to go over the abilities at the beginning of the video real quick before we jump into the actual gameplay. We should be able to get both PvP and PvE in this video, and so that's going to make it a lot easier for you to see how the Necromancer is actually shaping up. So first of all, let's start with animation, and the first thing you might notice is I have 4 skeletons, and they have a sword and shield, which is pretty nice. I don't think they had anything before. Now the way this works is I have a brand new ability that's been changed called Raise Brittle Skeleton. And apparently I have a new thing called Life Force. And I think, based on the fact that I have 4 of these up right now, that I have a maximum of 4 Life Force. So I raise a Brittle Skeleton to aid me in combat. And these are weak undead minions useful for overwhelming enemies. So they follow me all the time, they attack my enemies, and I have an ability called Grave March, which commands all of my active minions to charge towards my current target and focus their attacks on it. Very, very useful. Now, that's not the only thing, by the way, that I can summon. Another very interesting ability I have actually costs runic power, and this summons a rotting corpse to aid me in combat for only 15 seconds. So as far as I can see, the skeletons, which used to have a duration, now do not, and I have this new ability where I can raise a zombie for runic power, and it does cost something, and it does have a duration. So very, very interesting. I've also got a passive I don't recall having as well. Rotten, reducing the duration of all disease effects on me by 25%, and reduces the chance for my diseases to be dispelled by 15%. Very, very nice and flavorful. And another raise spell I didn't notice in the first place, right? Skeletal Smith. You summon a Skelly Smith that can repair the equipment of others, but you need a reagent, and that is the bronze bar. So that's actually really, really sick. I just have a permanent repair bot. Like, I just need a bronze bar. I also have unsummoned minions. Destroys active undead minions and returns their life force. Okay, let's try that. I am actually curious. How much life force do I have? Is it 4? Okay, so they're all dead. 3, 4, 5. Okay. You can spend life force to summon undead minions to attack. Gotcha. All right, let's get back to animation then. Some of the abilities look to be the same. Call of the Scourge still basically is a resurrect spell that turns my resurrected target into an undead, meaning they take 100% increased holy damage and take 80% reduced healing, but they gain an immunity to fear and sleep and charm effects, and they do extra shadow damage when they attack, which is pretty sick. Ghoulify is basically polymorph, but instead it turns them into a ghoul. However, their movement speed is increased by 40% when they're a ghoul, but they're also pacified and silenced while in ghoul form, so it's a very interesting one. And we have the first spell I'll show you of this brand new mechanic they've added called Spell Blight, an instant cast 20-second cooldown interrupt. 3-second silence, not really an interrupt, it's a blanket silence. But in order to use it, I have to sacrifice my lowest health minion. So that's where this comes into play. I have to use Raise Brittle Skeleton, spend my life force, it now has a cast time by the way, it used to be instant, and if I want to silence somebody, I sacrifice one of them for a 3-second silence. And I've also got this really sick ability in the same vein that sacrifices a targeted enemy minion on a 10-second cooldown, Acrid Aegis. I think that's how you say that? Aegis, something like that. It doesn't really matter. Point is, it sacrifices the lowest health minion and increases my armor value by 100% and reduces all damage I take by 15%. It also increases all healing I take by 20%. And after I cast this spell, I get 60% of my intellect as mana regen, which is really, really ridiculous. So you can see, I kill that guy, and I get this, right? Acrid Aegis. and this little 15 stack of the same thing with all those buffs that we just talked about. So that's good, because I don't think I had any defensives before. Now we've got our same buffs, Unholy Fortitude for 8% armor, 8% intellect, and down here in the rhyme tree, we have Razor Ice still. So people take 2 to 3 frost damage when they attack somebody with this on them, and frost damage is increased by 10%, and my armor is increased by about 100 on average for 30 minutes. And so these are pretty nice to have as well. Now at the end of my last video, when we reached max level towards the end, we picked up Heart Chill, which reduces healing done to an enemy target by 90% for 8 seconds. This should be, with my brand new silence, basically the nail in the coffin for any healer. So I'm excited to fight, for example, the Venomancer. You see a lot of Healy Venomancers. I think I can take them out pretty easy. And then we've got a new runic power spender on top of the raised zombie, and that's Glacial Dagger. 30-yard range, instant cast, no cooldown. Fires a dagger of ice at an enemy, dealing 98 to 110 frost damage to the target. Pretty interesting, not the most damage, but still relatively interesting because it's just a dump for my runic power with a 30-yard range. Now in the death tree, we still have Feed, which is a pretty cool spell that steals health from your target on a 5-second cooldown, but it can be used while casting or channeling, so the idea is that you want to get it spammed out. However, it is 20 runic power. And I've got Harvest Plague for the ability to siphon health from my enemy, and that's pretty good as well. So 2 dots right now. Of course, Harvest Plague has a cast time, Flesh to Worms does not. And then lastly, we have the replacement for my casual spammable single target spell. This has gone through 2 iterations, both of which we've already seen on this channel. The first one was they gave me a channeled spell like Drain Life, let's say. That was the first one. Then we had a castable ice spell, and then we have Putrefy. And it looks like they tried to combine it all and kind of hone everything into where you're more about diseases and plagues to begin with, less about frost. So that's interesting. So here's what this says. 1.36 second cast, 30-yard range. Assault your enemy target with deadly necrotic magic, dealing 39 to 42 plague damage. Plague damage is shadow and nature. So it looks like they're taking straight out of Harbinger of Pestilence right here, which is a build on the main realms. And the ability deals bonus damage based on your intellect. So I'm assuming this thing slaps. It also generates runic power, so it's my main way to get runic power, but it does something that the frost version of this spell did not do once upon a time. It increases all periodic damage taken by the target by 5% up to 3 times, meaning 15% more periodic damage. I'm assuming I'll get more periodic damage as time goes on, but the point of the matter is I'm basically the same Necromancer, but with more stuff. More PvP oriented stuff, if I'm completely honest, with the silence, with the damage cooldown and Acrid Aegis, and just an interesting array of summons that I'm really into. Although I do notice I used to have a way to summon some kind of abomination. It no longer looks like I have the ability to do that. They've replaced it with the zombie spell. And the zombie spell is clearly weaker than whatever my abomination was before, because that guy used to solo players by himself. So they have taken some stuff away, but they've added some more flavor, a lot more PvP potential with this build, because it really was lacking in a lot of ways, and I think it's rounded out to be a lot more fun. So the main part of this, as we all know from the last video with the Rune Master, is that they added talent trees finally. So this is something we did not get to experience in the first 2 videos with the Necromancer, because they simply didn't exist. Oh my god! I didn't look at these before the video, and I didn't expect to see this many at the top tier. So at level 51, you have 8 abilities to choose from, and it does seem to be, could be wrong, we'll figure it out as they raise the level cap, that you can only pick 1 ability per tier. So you have to be thinking about the fact that there could be 8 other ways that people choose to build at that tier. 7 other ways here, 6 here, 4, 3, 2, 2. I mean, there are going to be, hopefully, a variety of different ways to build every class. Or maybe they've bit off more than they can chew. I guess we'll find out. But we have Death, Rhyme, Animation, and starting at 33, we can start spending Ability Essence on the very first ability. We'll be able to choose from Expunge in the Death Tree, 7-second cooldown, decent plague damage to a diseased enemy, and adds 5 stacks of Crypt Plague to them. So that's another way to do some damage over time, perhaps. But I think what's important to keep in mind here is that this seems to work the same way as Feed. You can see right there, the spell is usable while casting or channeling. I like that mechanic. Potentially a broken mechanic, but as you can notice, most of these Feed spells, same thing down here with actual Feed, right? They don't do a lot of damage, right? So maybe that's the balance factor. But Who knows? Maybe the Crypt Plague is really powerful. So that's a weird one. Rhyme, if we want to go and be a Frost Lich, right? And we have Glacial Ward to pick from. 20 runic power, 6-second cooldown. It looks to be a shield. You absorb 93 to 104 frost damage. But it also reduces all physical damage I take by 15%. So that's not bad. While active, Death Chill passive has a 15% increased chance to proc. So I'm looking around for Death Chill. I don't see it, but I do see a new passive we didn't see before. That's Necromancy. Apparently, I generate 15 runic power now every 5 seconds, which is just like, what? Why do I have so much? Okay, it also allows 25% of my mana regen to continue while casting. Very good, by the way, because I was lacking in mana last time. And I gained 4 life points, which we already know about, to summon undead minions. It says undead minions I summon, and they spelled minions wrong, so fix that, gain attack power and spell power based on my intellect and my spell power. And they gain health based on my stamina and intellect. Interesting. I mean, I'm building for those anyway, but it's just nice to know, I guess. They do scale, and it looks like we can use their new config for these bars to turn it into a mana bar. That's so good, man. We didn't have this before. So I literally did not know what my mana was with X-Pearl. And this is going to be just such a big quality of life change, guys. So yeah, we might not exactly know what that Death Chill passive is quite yet, but we do know that this increases the chance to proc it. At the very bare minimum, though, I'll never absorb frost damage, right? However, reducing all physical damage I take by 15% essentially means that because nobody really has frost damage, that for the entire duration of this shield, which should theoretically be forever, I take 15% less physical damage. That's actually really powerful. It's a 30-second duration. Now, we've also got Chill Touch. Oh, and that is what used to be the main spell. And this is a Garbo version of Putrefy now, right? It's just completely worse. As far as the tooltip says, right? 22 to 28 frost damage, generates 20 runic power. But why would I ever use that when I have Putrefy doing more damage with way more effects, right? So what about animation? We have Foul Invocation and Plague Hulk. Plague Hulk seems to be a passive. It just straight up increases my healing taken by 10% and reduces physical damage I take by 3%. That's an interesting one. Not crazy, but okay. What about Foul Invocation? A channeled ability on a 2-minute cooldown. I begin to channel Unholy Energy, generating 10 runic power every 0.5 seconds for 5 seconds. While channeling, I take 35% reduced physical damage. So it's essentially evocation, but instead of giving me mana, it gives me runic power. But it's better in that regard because I take less damage while using it. So perhaps there's some implication where I'd actually want to use it as a way to reduce damage in an actual PvP encounter. We'll have to play around with runic power and see, is it plentiful, or hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the passive 15 on top of the passive from this Flesh to Worm spell on top of the 20 that I get every time I putrefy, maybe that won't feel like enough. Keeping in mind, I really only have 3 spells that use it right now in Glacial Dagger, Raise Zombie, and Feed. So yeah, I don't know. But I think the best way to play right now, considering the fact, once again, that Raise Zombie, even if I didn't say it, does not actually require any of my life force, that basically what I think I can do is just run around with 4 brittle skeletons up at all time. I like that. I really like that a lot. That adds to the class fantasy. So I think now that we're done going over the spells, as you can see, if you watch the first 2 videos, there have been a lot of changes. I think we should just jump into some gameplay and see what we can do and see what ability to pick at 33. I won't lie, I'm actually leaning towards animation. I don't think any of these tier 1 spells for Necro were particularly fascinating. Glacial Ward actually seems the most broken, believe it or not, and it impressed me the least when I first read it, but after I read it again, it is just passive damage reduction, right? So I think that might be the way to go. So I start off with a duel. I decided to duel Leonidas because he asked, and he is currently playing a Starcaller, and he's actually healing for the dungeon that I'm about to do. But he's going to try the 2H version of Starcaller here, and I was just going to use my abilities on him and see what's going to go down. Fact of the matter is, though, you can see by the HP differences here that one class might just have 4 to 5 times more output than the other class. So, I mean, there's a lot going on here, right? I stacked up my Putrefy to 3. I put my dots on. All I could really do at that moment, other than, hope my guys are attacking him, was Putrefy. And it wasn't enough, so I died. I literally died. But that just shows that, obviously some things are really, really overtuned right now, and some things aren't. But we did get into a Scarlet Monastery, and this is where the magic happens, because we're going to try to level as far as we can here, hopefully getting past like 36, 37. Remember, 40 is the cap. And at the end of that, we'll be able to get our next tier of talents, whatever that might be, and take a look at all of them, really. All right, Jesus, we're going fast. I've got a few observations. Number 1, it could be that my gear is holding me back, but I am dropping off in terms of damage. I'm noticing these Reapers are doing ridiculous damage for minimal effort. Everything's dying fast. So, you know, while I think that my first impression was that I'm super strong, and again, it could be because I don't have the right gear yet. I might scale better, but I think that it might not be too good in PvP. Things might be a little over-nerfed for Necro right now in PvP, specifically because they might be terrified of the idea of all of these undead just, you know, destroying everybody, because that's what they did before. You would just summon a bunch of them and your skellies and your A-bomb would one-shot people. It doesn't look like it does anything remotely close anymore. So those are just my observations so far, on top of the fact that my DPS is a lot lower. But it's kind of like the Harbinger of Pestilence build on live. If everything dies fast, it's kind of like artificially low because you simply don't have enough time to use your abilities. I don't think these Scarlet Monastery mobs have like buffed health or anything. Either that or classes in general are still overtuned. I'm not sure yet. Now, we all know numbers might not be right. Nobody really cares too much about that because we have hope that when the game comes out, things will be more balanced because they have all of alpha to balance it, right? But what about playability? What about fun factor? What about flavor and theme? Well, has it gotten better? Yes. I will say it's also gotten a little bit worse because here's the thing. Summoning a big giant demon that was owning everybody with the A-bomb and getting it at such a low level, it was like level 12 or 13 that I got it, honestly was iconic, and I think a lot of people enjoyed that. So I'm a little disappointed in that regard. However, the new Skelly Brittle system, the summon zombie spell costing runic power, being spammable, and sacrificing your minions for good effects, that is so much better than how it was before in terms of theme, right? Just, ooh, 38 already. But yeah, in terms of raw theme, so much better because again, the Necro doesn't just summon minions, you use those minions in creative ways, whether it's destroying them and using their parts, which is what, you know, the theme is now, and then getting buffs on it, or getting some kind of non-combat effect like we are with the Skelly Smith. It's just very interesting and very cool. All right, let's get the Scarlet Key. Let's not forget that. Already 38 though is pretty nutty. Hopefully these people want to queue again. Too many level 40s, they're not going to queue again. But yeah, the class in terms of theme, playability, fun. In terms, again, if we're going to talk about playability, what do I mean? Well, what I mean is it smooth to play and does it make intuitive sense, right? Are you going to have to do a college research paper to figure this one out like the Rune Master, which not a lot of people want to do in their free time for a video game? Or can you just pick it up and start playing and be effective? Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that I'm level 38 and I already have a build that is more complex than almost every classic WoW class that exists. So that's the first thing I'd say. If you don't like builds that require you to click a lot of things often, in this case, constantly summoning, constantly finding ways to spend runic power, and constantly keeping very short duration dots up, then you'll like the Necro, right? Because it's a bunch of good return, and it looks like it's going to be a high skill cap class. But if you're looking for something simple, once again, Necro is not for you. But anyway, we still have a few more levels to go, and by the way, I can actually spend my ability essence on the second tier here, which is Death Chill. Now, this is exactly what Glacial Ward is alluding to, so that's a little weird in the tech tree that you would get the proc being increased first before you ever get the ability offered to you. But let's see. Death Chill causes your Necromancer Frost attacks to have a chance to afflict the target with Death Chill. In this regard, by the way, that means just Glacial Dagger right now. Okay, so Glacial Dagger puts Death Chill on the target, reducing their movement speed and attack speed. 10% and 6% respectively. This effect stacks up to 6 times, so up to 60% movement speed and 36% attack speed reduction. The target is stunned for 10 seconds, and frost spells made against them have a massively increased crit chance. So essentially, oh my god, Glacial Dagger, both in how it looks and now based on that talent, is basically a really crazy spammable version of Ice Lance. So let's take that. I am very curious. So maybe with this version of the build, the way I want to do things is just spam Glacial Dagger. And as a result, I'd want to keep up Glacial Ward at all times to get that increased proc chance. That could be pretty sick. Out of curiosity, I wonder what I could get from other trees. Animation gives me Putrid Form, reducing all healing I take by 75%, but when I am healed, I regain 15% of my base health over 10 seconds. That's a really weird one. And then we have Raise Blood Ghoul, another raise spell. You raise a Blood Ghoul to aid you in combat, that, and they steal health from enemies and give it to me. Ooh, I like that. Blood ghouls also increase healing taken by 5%, and they occupy 2 life force while active, so I could have 2 blood ghouls, or 1 blood ghoul and 2 brittle skellies. We're gonna have to try that as well. Death gives me Crypt Plague, which is really cool from Warcraft 3, and then Necrosis. Crypt Plague infects my target with 3 stacks of Crypt Plague. So interesting, Expunge puts 5 stacks. Do they just keep going? Because that's 8 with the Crypt Plague here. When Crypt Plague expires, the unit suffers shadow damage based on the amount of stacks, but new applications of Crypt Plague don't refresh its duration. Or Necrosis, whenever you deal damage to an enemy, you inflict them with Necrosis, reducing all healing they take. I don't think I ever would want that. Why would I take that when I have free access to Heart Chill and a freaking Silence? Again, I don't know how this is going to be balanced at max level. The more I look at the abilities, it is so intense. No matter what class you're playing, it is so intense. Dude, I just dueled this random guy just for fun. He is permanently putting me in Son of Ursoc. It says I can only use Bear Maw and Primal Charge with a 90% reduced cooldown. So do they actually give me the abilities? No. No, they don't. So essentially, this class is broken. And he can just prevent me from playing the game. Because he just keeps putting Son of Ursoc on me. I don't even know what to say. And it makes me the, like, what is it called? The Amani Battle Bear or something like that? I literally can't beat him. Well, I can auto attack him. Okay, yeah. I can auto attack him. Jesus. So this is just showing you that something is always still going to be broken. I mean, it's alpha, man. Like, that's the whole thing. We're testing things, seeing what things look like. You know, what animations are they choosing for things? How are they designing everything? You know, how is it progressing? And there's bound to be bugs. But I really don't know how you can mess this up on a level 6. This is a level 6 Primalist. Thank God I could still win. Really? I was just about to start talking, too. Well, one thing I do just want to say is I'm slightly incorrect. I thought it was 1 thing per row. It's not. You can actually choose as many things as you want, but in order to progress to the next tier, you have to take something from the previous tier. So for example, this guy I was talking to who's playing Frost Necro, I got him to try Glacial Ward, and he turns out he likes it. And the way that he could do that, because you can only have 3 abilities at this point of the alpha, is he had to get rid of Bone Freeze, an ability that you get at level 39. By getting rid of that, he could take Death Chill, Chill Touch, and Glacial Ward, which makes a lot more sense and instantaneously creates a Frost build as early as level 39. Another interesting thing I saw is that Crypt Plague, while gimmicky, is actually going to probably end up being extremely fun. Because essentially what happens, as you can see, is that if I can stack it enough, and I'm sure I can get more Crypt through other abilities, and I'm sure I can, you know, be efficient with this and probably get a crap ton of stacks up, you can see I still hit an 804, no crit on somebody, man. At level 40, I believe he was. I'm kind of curious if we can do more. So it actually looks like Crypt Plague caps at 30. I want to show it to you guys real quick. So I put my disease up and I can expunge for 5 and Crypt Plague for 3. So he's at 8 right now. The interesting thing about this though is that I can actually macro these two together if I want. So I think I can make this slightly faster. Not anything crazy significant, but it's just, you know, interesting to point out. I can do them at the same time. So then it does damage. It's at 29, I think, right now. And 734 on this guy. A lot more on the boar out there, but this guy is basically same level, and that's a third of his health. That's a lot of random burst. You know, you can imagine if all my dots are up, I'm spamming the Putrefy, 15% more periodic damage. Maybe he's silenced, you know, maybe he has Heart Chill up on him. It could be difficult. And he's saying, yeah, it's 734 every time. So, you know, it's a lot of damage. Let's try the Blood Ghoul on somebody. Okay, my Blood Ghouls are up. He's going to do damage to me, and I just want to see the healing. They're healing me for 100 every time. Right? Wow, this guy has a lot of damage. So we're getting a pretty good representation of what is genuinely not that much healing. Little unimpressed with the Blood Ghoul right now, but maybe it'll perform a little bit better, maybe at higher levels. So we've basically seen all 3 ways to play right now. The Death way of playing is all about Crypt Plague at low levels. The Frost way of playing is with the Chill Touch, which is like a Ice Lance, and then we have the Glacial Ward for more procs, Death Chill for a massive stacking debuff that increases crit, and animations, summon more stuff. Lots of passives also in the animation tree. That actually does make it like an actual talent tree. Some of these are passive. I guess that makes sense. There's just no branching paths, right? That's more traditional, but it's kind of like a new age talent tree in a lot of ways. Also, I thought Venomancer had garbage damage, but really, that felt big. That felt like a lot. All right, he's going to show us DPS Venomancer spider damage. And then we'll probably get to this Oldemon, get to 40, and hopefully get into a BG. I don't think it'll teleport me in. So, okay. All these poisons, Spider Bite, Lethal Toxin, Withering Venom, Venom Spit, Miasma. And look how quick I died. That was actually... like, I'm jealous. I'm actually upset. So, okay, pre-30 Venomancer wasn't particularly great, but level 40 DPS Venomancer, pretty freaking great. Okay, so, if I don't die here, I'm going to summon all... well, actually, let's do 2 Brittles, and let's try the 1 Blood Ghoul. Let's try that combo, right? Let me just make sure I can't do more. Oh, I can. Okay, or maybe I can't. Essentially, I'm going to have all those guys fighting for me. The healing is not too bad. If you think of it as just raw, obvious, like, residual healing, it's not that bad. It's just a lot of my healing is, like, itty-bitty, like this Harvest Plague. And it's not quite stacking up to be something significant. Not yet. It might get there, you know? And we also have the feed. But again, we've got to get there. We've got to make it stack. I think it's going to scale well. You know, it's like, it feels like Warlock on retail to me. You know how Warlock just kind of sucks? Or it used to, while leveling. But then you get to 60, and in any expansion, it scales so well. It does so well. Now, you can see my pets are doing enough damage for me to where I basically don't have to do anything. Honestly, this is the ultimate AFKers class. You know what I'm talking about. Those days you queue up for like a random dungeon and you just don't have it in you, but you've got to get your daily done or something, so you just do it anyway. Well, a lot of us might choose a 1 or 2 button build for those days. But what if I told you you could have a 0 button build? A build where you just summon your pets and you never actually have to do anything else for the rest of the dungeon, except occasionally make sure they come out again. All right, so we send your pets in with T, and what do? I mean, the damage is... you know, it's not as good in Oldemon, no lie. Compared to the guys that just one-shot Revelosh, I didn't even realize we were fighting him. Like, they just freaking one-shot him. We've got another Reaper. Looks like an Engineer. Ravenous Bite, so we have the Son of Aragol. And then, ooh, a Demon Hunter. Looks like the Demon Hunter might be a tank. And the healer left. Maybe they were going for a specific drop. Also, it's important to keep in mind, when it comes to AoE damage, I just realized, I mean, I have none. There's literally 0 so far in the Necro tree that I'm noticing. Okay, I hope I'm not missing it, but I don't see it anywhere. You know, I'm talking about genuine cleave or AoE. There's none. It's single target and healing, but no cleave, no AoE. So I'm assuming I'll end up getting enough dots to where I could just dot everything. My 1-2 with R and E, Harvest Plague and Flesh to Worms, is actually pretty smooth. It's a little faster than Unstable Affliction and Vampiric Touch to cast my Harvest Plague, but it is on a 12-second cooldown, which is very much unlike your regular dots that we're used to on Shadow Priest and Warlock. So it's a little weird. It's actually extremely weird because a 12-second cooldown implies it should hit like a truck. That's as far as I would assume, right? But if you look at it, if I Harvest Plague an NPC, which by the way is the most damage I'll do, is a 49. I'm ticking 49. Yes, I'm getting 49. It looks like more. Based on some passives or something, I'm getting slightly more health than the damage it's doing. But in the grand scheme of things, it's really, really underwhelming right now. We should just stick to summoning stuff so that we're not below the tank. One thing that is good, though, is the pets aren't dying. You would think you might have some issue controlling all the pets, but no. All you have to do is keep summoning your zombie whenever you can. Everything else tends to live. And you just press your 1 keybind to make everything attack 1 target. I mean, it's very, very smooth now that they've added Grave March. It was not smooth before that. In fact, it was detrimental because your minions would attack random crap sometimes. We're too low level to even hit these guys right now. And there's like nothing I can do. The DPS, man. Again, I think I've said this in every video so far throughout the alpha. The Necro is not a damage powerhouse. However, you do feel like a Necro the whole time. Also, if we don't get a healer, I'm just going to bail. In fact, if I hit level 40 before we get a healer, there's no point of me staying. Think of it like this. If my team wants to push through this without the healer, I'm not really contributing enough with the current class I'm playing on anyway to really make that big of a difference. Plus 40 is all I need to be, and then I can actually start doing some stuff like BGs maybe. Hopefully we get some Q pops, right? Even if we don't do well, we can still check out the class, look at the general damage that we're seeing, see if it feels smooth, and maybe there will be some classes that we can compete against right now. As long as they're not Reapers, I guess. There we go, level 40. Okay, so we bailed, but let's look at this, because Flesh Golem seems to be back, just at a much higher level, but is it equally strong? You raise a Flesh Golem to aid you in combat, they periodically taunt enemies, they have high health, and they give me 15% increased health. Oh, it's a permanent pet now. and it occupies 3 life force. I could also get Bone Scrap, siphons 40% of the maximum health from your active minion on an 18-second cooldown, and grants you a damage shield based on the amount of health consumed. So that's very cool, because technically you could take Ray's Flesh Golem and Bone Scrap, and that should be a massive shield, kind of like the Voidwalker shield interaction on live. And then we have Necrotic Ray, 100-yard range channel a beam of unholy power into an undead minion, increasing their attack speed by 40% and movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Each second while channeling, the target gains a stack of necrotic power. Interesting. But I think we all know what I want to try, and that's the Ray's Flesh Golem. Now, if we were in other trees, Bone Freeze is an option. It looks more PvP oriented. 9-second cooldown, 30% speed, slow, does a mild amount of frost damage, generates a mild amount of runic power. Okay, what about in the Death Tree? We have Ray of Rot, channel a beam of plague upon an enemy target that deals 23 to 24 plague damage every 0.46 seconds for 4.55 seconds. While channeling, the target takes 20% increased periodic damage. That seems very nice and smooth. Or Spectral Decay. Okay, I like the sound of that. 0.9 second cast, plague an enemy for 18 seconds. Very significant. A lot of things require your enemy to be plagued. For the duration, their spell haste is reduced by 25%, and they suffer mild shadow damage every 3 seconds. Now, the target will also take an additional, look, it says 0, could be more though, every time they cast a spell while this disease is active. So to make this simple, this is anti-caster. You put it on them, they cast slower, and every time they do get a cast off, they take shadow damage. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's look at the Flesh Golem, because I'm obsessed. I like this iteration better already because it's permanent. So, no, I didn't want the Blood Ghoul, but I can't stop it. They won't let me have Blood Ghoul and Flesh Golem out, right? Like, I was right. I have to have one of the life force, right? Yes, they will. Interesting. So, it does appear like I have 1 life force left, but you can still spend the 5. So, I have 1 Flesh Golem out. That's pretty big damage. A taunt, giving me a massive health boost, and 1 Blood Ghoul, which is interesting. It increases my healing taken and periodically heals me. I also opted simply for the passive that gives me 10% healing taken and 3% reduced damage taken. Plague Hulk, right? So it could be that I'm innately tanky. Let's see the damage. Okay. 200s. Oh, that's my big boy. He hits hard just like he used to. Except now, I didn't have this ability when I used to use him. Now I can just send him to everything with Grave March. God, it works so smooth, man. So what can I say about the PvP? Well, first and foremost, as I was alluding to earlier in the video, yes, this is a bit of an undertuned class damage-wise. You can see in the background, I'm hitting for 30s. I've got my demons out. I've got the A-bomb out. It's not hitting for 200s on players. It's hitting for 36s. And if you compare me to what other people are doing, just look at recount, for God's sakes. Yeah, I'm not even in the same ballpark damage-wise. Now, I'm sure my gear obviously could be better. I could have all, the twink gear on, but the people I'm fighting don't have twink gear on either, right? And they're doing way more. And I can tell based on health and stats that, they might have a couple good pieces, but it's not that much better, if at all better, than what I've got on right now. So that's something interesting to think about as well. Now, what am I capable of doing right? Well, theoretically, I'm capable of shutting casters down, but you can see if it's like the Star Caller or anything like that, they just blow me up anyway. The 3-second silence isn't helping either, so I really do think it's just a pure damage problem. I will show you this right. I did have a fight where I actually did kill somebody, but I'm pretty sure somebody else was doing some damage as well, because I really just don't have any damage, like literally 0. And there's no real reward at the moment for getting every dot up, starting that putrefy to get the periodic damage increase, and using your channeled instant abilities, because there's like nothing coming from it. Again, flavor is good, and I think the abilities are there for there to be some serious potential, but the damage is not, right? I've got my defensive cooldown, I've got my interrupt, that's really nice, but everything's very bloated, so if I'm literally doing no damage for way more effort than a lot of other classes put in for way more damage right now, it's going to leave you feeling not satisfied. And also the PvE is kind of in the same boat. Like, you just don't feel like you're good at either thing, PvP or PvE, compared to a lot of the other classes right now. Now, with 21 classes, I guess it's fair to expect that some will fall behind. especially in alpha. But it is very important to keep in mind just how much this class has changed in just the last few months. Like, this has done a complete 180 in the last 3 months. They keep changing their design philosophy, but it looks like they finally got to a point with the Necro that they're happy with. So I think now is the time that we're probably going to start seeing some damage numbers, some tuning with the damage numbers, that is. And then perhaps if the Necro did, honestly, unless they really lower the damage of so many classes, it would need to do triple to just feel okay. And I even don't know if that's enough. That's how weak it is right now. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it. There really wasn't much to show because the class doesn't have as much potential to show, at least with the version of the spec I was using. Maybe the ice version does more, but when the other guy was showing me his damage, and as you guys kind of saw as well, it was fine, you know what I mean? But it wasn't what a lot of, like, let's say the top 10 classes on Koa can do right now. You know, your Reapers, your Star Callers, your Tinker, maybe your Knight of Zoroth, stuff like that. So what are my final thoughts? Well, I think the class, once again, is committed to the class fantasy in a very genuine way. The fact of the matter is they already had it good enough. Like, I think everybody would have been happy with the previous design, but they decided to extrapolate on it. For example, once again, with this new sacrifice mechanic, just the fact that that's a thing now that I'm seeing with the Necro feels good, you know, because everything was a little bit one-dimensional, yet still thematic before. Now it's less one-dimensional and more thematic, and that's by default good. The only thing this class has wrong with it right now is horrendous tuning, but of course it's alpha. You know, the damage is too low, and when the damage is too low, it makes it hard to test. I mean, yeah, you need to test if every ability does what it's supposed to do. And by the way, one bug I'll mention in case the devs get this far in the video is that right now, the life force mechanic's not working properly. So sometimes you summon the A-bomb, nothing happens at all. Sometimes you summon A-bomb first and it won't let you blood ghoul, but if you blood ghoul first, it will let you flesh golem. So it's all over the place, so that needs to be fixed. And yeah, that's part of alpha as well, is figuring out those bugs. But once again, it makes it damn near impossible to test 21 classes and their balance when the damage is so horrifically off for some classes. You've got to quickly get the damage to be more equal, and, you know, ask the player base for what you might need to make that, you know, a little bit easier for you. I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that at all, because once again, how am I supposed to truly know if Necro is doing okay when, you know, 10 of the 21 classes will basically kill me without even looking at their keyboard or anything? Like, it doesn't really matter. And the other 11 are possibly on the same level as me, although again, there's so many classes, I haven't fought all of them yet, but that's just my prediction. So again, damage needs to go up. Flavor is sick though, talents are cool. Animation, rhyme, and death, super creative. Learning about how all of this is going to work and thinking about all the endless possibilities and the fact that there are passive versions of it now. I mean, what the hell is going on in the animation tree? Like, it's so much bigger than every talent I've ever seen. It's like they just had so much crap and they were like, forget about it. Just throw it all in and see what happens. And I like it. I like it a lot. So if you guys enjoyed this video, you enjoyed looking at the Necromancer, checking it out once again in the updated alpha with the level cap increase, make sure to give this video a like and to subscribe. They got rid of my Felforge mode. It actually made me super sad. I was actually really enjoying it again, like playing and everything, and then now it's gone. I'm like, okay, gotta find a build to do. And I thought, you know what, forget about it. Let's just go to Koa. Let's just play Koa, man. Koa's always fun. So like I said, if you enjoyed, like and sub, but I'll see you in the next video. Mcdoubles out.